So in Wipro, he has been veteran. He has been working there for more than 25 years, and he used to head the cyber security practice, and he ran this group for 18 years. So, and he is a thorough professional in the field of cybersecurity. So that is just brief about what I know. But Sheetalji, I know that being as a CISO, I know I can imagine that what kind of different kind of work you must be doing. But just to introduce this group, actually we all are from Jaipur, TIE members. We all are entrepreneurs, small to medium sized entrepreneurs. You can say that the number of people in these enterprise might be between 5 people to 100 people to 500 people, maybe 1,000 people. So that is the range of the number of people of our organization. And we mostly are non-IT people, though I am from IT field, but not security expert. But we mostly are from non-IT field, and we use IT just as a tool. So my questions would be very basic because I think most of us even do not know the basics of security. And uh, so to start with, actually, if you can just brief your topic for 2 3 minutes, 5 minutes, then for half an hour, I have a list of questions which I will be asking from you, and then rest half an hour I will leave it to the audience so that they can ask the question and solve their queries. So, so over to you, Sheetalji.
Perfect. Thank you, Panitji. So first of all, thank you all for taking the time out. I know it's Sunday, it's a family time, and thank you for attending this session. And welcome to the world of cyber. Frankly, the way the world is moving and the way things are changing, whether it's a small enterprise, large enterprise, a mega enterprise, it's going to come and impact every segment of the marketplace. What I look at when I look at things the way they are, we are living in a digital economy, and as I see this digital economy is shrinking by every day. What that means is that we are getting connected in a very effective manner as we march forward. I'll give you some in my conversations. I'm going to use a lot of examples, but I'll just give you a start off with a very simple example. I'm not sure if anybody of you have heard about the Twitter handle of Standard and Poor's in New York being hacked some time back. And let me just articulate the entire storyline so that you'll understand the impact cyber can create for anyone. So effectively, that particular point of time, the Twitter handle for Associated Press, which is one of the largest press groups under S&P, Standard and Poor's, was hacked, and just the hacker just added a message that there is an impact to White House. And the way the systems are connected in today's world, in the next 6 minutes, Wall Street went crashing down, and there was a loss of close to $139 million in just flat 6 minutes. Now you can understand the impact that such an event can handle. Of course, this was a fake event, and the market picked up again. But just look at the level of impact that you can create in such a digital enterprise. And that's where, as we march forward, the realization that most enterprises, small, large, or big in nature, have is that you have to keep your threat surface under control. The surface which is exposed to hackers, to the bad boys, I may call them in simple terms, and make sure that there is a level of awareness around cyber put in place within your individual enterprises. And there are two very critical aspects which come to my mind. The first is this tendency to expose your information. That aspect of it has to really stop, where you do not expose your information unless it is required. And you should apply your cybersecurity controls where your data is. If you look at even the small enterprises of tomorrow, what's going to happen is cloud is going to play a major game or major role in every enterprise for them to be competitive. And effectively, once you move to cloud, you don't even have control on where you reside. And hence, cyber controls have to move along with the data. The second one, especially for small and medium class enterprises where you cannot do massive investments in terms of cyber controls. For example, in my organization, we've done almost 70 to 80 controls that we have, technology centric controls, which are very, very aggressively put in place for the enterprise. Now, when it comes to small and medium, what makes a difference is the level of cyber awareness that you have to drive. The sole reason why I'm saying this is a simple fact that if you really keep your house clean, your basics in place, the requisite level of awareness is actually put in place, you will be covered 95% in terms of the attacks or patterns or the adversaries or the bad boys coming in. You'll be able to cover that 95%. Left is that 5%, which is cutting edge, which is very, very futuristic. We call them advanced persistent threats in simple terms. They're very advanced in nature and very pointed in nature, and they go after organizations very in a focused manner. That 5% is something which probably you don't even need to worry, given if you have covered the 95% with the required level of the proper in-house controls as well as the required level of awareness. With that, let me take a pause and probably take up some questions and then go forward. I will definitely be using a lot of examples which probably will help everyone to understand the context.
Yeah, thank you, Shitalji. So, yeah, so you said that actually we need not to worry about 100%, even if we are able to basically secure 95% of the things, then 5%, of course, let us leave it on God. So, but I think that as on today, I think a lot of us are not even using the 50% of it, not 95%, 50% of it. So that is what actually we would like to understand from you, that how we can reach from 95% to 5%. So coming to my first question, actually it is about basically the communication. Since the lockdown, most of the world is at home. The offices are running from home, and suddenly Zoom has become very popular. I think mainly because it is very easy to use, and it's very simple and good to use. But recently there was a lot of news into the market that Zoom is not secure. Zoom is not safe. And suddenly, whatever positive and news were going about Zoom, suddenly there was a dislike for Zoom. So can you little bit highlight more on that, what happened and why the companies like Zoom, even they are not that secured as we could have thought?
Absolutely. First of all, my view of Zoom is that the information is little inflated in the market. While it has, if I really look at Zoom, the biggest mistake that Zoom did is it actually focused upon really looking at how customers can use it in a much more productively, much more effectively. So it brought in a lot of simplicity in how the entire process in Zoom works. But they missed out on making sure that the requisite security controls, whether it is to do with open issues with their application, we call them in simple terms as vulnerabilities in the applications, and effective control management for Zoom as a platform. And hence it's in the news, but the news is little inflated in terms of what people think. For small and medium enterprises, if we have our basics in place, and I'll go back to the earlier point which I made. If we get our basics in place, I don't think there are issues with reference to privacy or having a threat impact through these media platforms like Zoom and Skype and WebEx. Let me just quickly touch upon a couple of points which I think are very important when we are utilizing the likes of Zoom for our business purpose. Number one, if we just look at our basics, for example, we make sure that we are protecting the Zoom account or a WebEx account or a Skype account through a strong password, or just utilizing a additional second factor authentication. Now this authentication can be biometric access, it can be a token which is actually on top of your password itself, very similar to how the banks today provide tokens and so on and so forth. So effectively, if you have the right level of controls in terms of account ID, account password, having a strong password, and having a second factor authentication, that's probably the first and foremost thing to really make sure that we secure the communication channels at the first place. Second, in my view, is when you at least look at these communication channels, every meeting needs to have a password. And I think that's the most important thing, so that you are ensuring only those people who need to be in the meeting are able to attend it. The third bit, in my view, is you also should have utilize most of these tools also have something called as waiting room, where you can approve who is attending these sessions. And that's another feature that you can really simplistically use when you're utilizing these tools and technologies. The last bit which I feel is that when you are driving screen sharing, um, uh, you probably should be little attentive in terms of what you're sharing. And are you sharing the entire desktop, your entire laptop, or are you sharing your a very pointed document? That is extremely important. And the last bit, which I think that you should effectively utilize, is instead of using an app, it's important that you look at using the web client. That web client is the latest and the greatest, having all the security controls. So that's another shift that you should do as I see it. There are two other aspects which I think also is important when you look at such communication tools, and that is to do with your transfer of information. So effectively, if you look at the data protection controls that you need to apply, you need to make sure that you really pay attention to data protection and data privacy information that the provider is providing, and also when access to your device is sought, or you may give your location information, your contact information, your directory information. You need to be little cautious when providing these kind of functions out to these providers. In my view, if you're able to drive the requisite controls on your passwords, authentication parameters, requisite controls on who can access these conferencing features, making sure that you use the latest and greatest in terms of the web client, making sure that you do not expose or you do not provide permissions to the data or sensors regarding your location, your contacts, I think that will cover most of the working through these communication mediums. And in my view, these are the best out there, and we should effectively utilize them because it drastically increases our business productivity.
Yeah. So thank you, Sheetal. You said that rather than the apps, we should use web client. So can you explain what does that mean? What are the web clients and what are the applications?
So take for example Zoom itself, or WebEx itself. So the WebEx can also be implemented as an app onto your machine,
Right.
or you can also go to the Zoom website and start the session. For example, today for this session, I don't use Zoom, by the way. Today for the session, I did not really download the app at all onto my machine. I just went to the web client and started the Zoom instance there, then and there itself.
Right.
The reason why this is important is that a lot of times um, we as when we want to use a particular application, we will go online, search for Zoom app and download it from any website. And the challenge is when you do so, you are actually also allowing certain additional add-on components to come to your machine or to your laptop, which in turn can exfiltrate or provide some additional information onto the other side. And hence, using the web client is far more simpler and far more secure rather than the app itself.
Right. So, Sheetal, actually, even in the web client, when you start initially, first time, it asks that, okay, can we install this Zoom something on the web client? So, is it safe? Because it does not directly run on the web client, it asks for some permissions.
Yes, and that is safe. It actually does it for that particular point of time itself. The challenge with using when you use these communication mediums is if you are attentive enough and you are downloading application from the parent website, then you're covered. A lot of times, Zoom maybe also have pseudo applications on the open internet, especially in today's world. There are multiple components of Zoom which are floating out there, and you
Right,
may end up downloading something which is not advisable.
right, right. So, Sheetal, actually, you also told that actually we should only share maybe the presentation and maximum screen, but not the control of your laptop or not the data. So, so how we can make sure, because sometimes as a non-IT expert, we do not know that what we are sharing, what we are not sharing. Or my second question is that do these all good tools like Zoom and WebEx and Skype, do they give permission of your laptop to be controlled by other person, or they do not allow that?
So the most of the tool sets today do have the capability to transfer permission of control to the other person. So
Right.
those capabilities are very much in place, and
Mm.
that's the sole reason why when you utilize these platforms are extremely productive in my view. But when you utilize this platform, you got to be a little attentive in terms of how you're utilizing them and what you're utilizing them for. Take for example, I use WebEx a lot. In a day, I must be using it for 8 to 10 hours. And when I use WebEx, I will never go and share my entire desktop and all
Mm.
the applications open on the desktop onto WebEx. What I will do is that I will only selectively share the presentation or the Excel sheet onto the other side and not really cover the entire machine and expose it out in the open. So these are just subtle shifts and changes in terms of how you utilize these platforms that you can do to make sure that your data and your controls are secure enough.
Yeah. Okay. So, audience, actually, I'm not taking any question until I am asking, but if there is something in between which you feel urgent, you can basically send the question on the chat window of everyone. Okay, so again on the communication, Sheetalji, actually nowadays we use a lot of WhatsApp, okay, especially in India. And WhatsApp in a SMEs like small enterprises, medium enterprises, it has also becoming a communication tool because in SMEs they do not know how to use Slack and other things. And in fact, on WhatsApp, people are exchanging Excel, people are exchanging accounts, people are exchanging passwords. Okay, and so are we sure that on WhatsApp, because WhatsApp also says that all your messages are encrypted and they are secure. So are we sure that whatever we are doing on WhatsApp is safe and secure?
So, the way these tools have built themselves, whether it's WhatsApp or whether it's a simple technique of SMS, the way the tools are set up is that when you are setting it up onto your mobile devices, they will ask you to allow them access to certain controls within your device itself. it's very important to pay attention when you are setting up these controls, so that you do not give them, for example, access to your entire telephone book, for example,
Yep.
or giving them access to the location on a constant basis, for them to kind of know where what your location is, and so on and so forth. If you're able to drive these controls, most of these information sharing platforms have good amount of encryption already in place. So they are in those terms, they are fairly secure. And it's us who actually makes certain exposures, which is what we should really avoid, in my
Hmm.
view.
Yeah. Okay. Uh,
Let me just touch on upon another point when it comes to the aspects of WhatsApp or SMS and so on and so forth. See, most of these platforms, collaboration platforms, run very effectively on your mobile devices. What
hmm.
is important is to make sure that your mobile device is clean. Today you have almost you do most of your banking transactions on the mobile device. You actually have all these collaboration tools on your mobile device. You in simple terms, you're using your mobile device in the most effective way, as to drive your business transactions. And the basics go back again for your mobile device as well, in terms of how sure are you that you're not downloading applications which are not known, especially on Android. There are a whole lot of applications and environments which probably may have a code base. So what you are downloading onto your mobile device, what kind of security controls that you have on your mobile device, will make the difference in terms of how these social platforms also gets utilized.
Okay. So, coming to a very different and interesting topic, Sheetalji. Actually, a lot of people normally ask me that where to keep my this cash accounts. Earlier, like especially in small businesses, again, actually there are two kind of accounts. One is called Pakka, one is called Kacha. Number A, number two. Account for government on real account. So, and unfortunately, in Indian businesses, it will still be there for some time. So, people are really worried that how to secure this data. So, a lot of people keep it in Excel, they make it password protected, they make it safe in somewhere in the files in the laptop, and they think that it is secure. Or some people actually take it to USB, few people keep it on cloud, and then maybe if someday some income tax rate comes, and like so how people can make sure that, and it's not only this number pakka kacha, but it may be some other things which people really do not want to share with anybody, and they want to keep within themselves only. So how they can make sure, or what are the different ways so that these files, and these files are not very big files, they can be small Excel files with only some few kilobytes of data or Word file, that's all. So how they can make sure that these files are 100% secure?
So there are probably to make sure that you have such critical files covered. There are probably I will recommend probably two ways to look at things.
Hmm.
I'm a strong proponent of using cloud as the futuristic solution, given that a cloud provider can provide stronger controls than individual organizations like you and me can provide.
Hmm.
And given that very aspect, take for example, if I just look at Google Cloud or Microsoft Cloud, a Google Cloud provides ground level encryption as something which is basic in their enterprise. Effectively, a lot of enterprises get impacted. In fact, I was working probably 2 weeks back uh, with an enterprise, with a concern enterprise, which had less than 100 employees, and they had similar setup in their environment, and they got impacted through an adversary, and the ransomware actually encrypted all the information which they had. And effectively, in those scenarios, you cannot recover much information at that particular point of time. That can happen with your desktops, that can happen with your laptops, that can even happen with your small the networks that you have within your individual enterprises. And the
Right.
best way to probably look at these highly critical files is to really see if you can utilize cloud-based solutions, and going back to the basics where you employ strong password methods, multi-factor authentication methods, as well as making sure that you apply encryption within these components much more effective. So if your data is encrypted, you have the requisite password protection, including the multi-factor protection. In my view, you are safe and fairly secure. Now, instead of cloud, can you use a USB? Yes, you can definitely use a USB. Most of the USB tools today provide this basic base password protection and encryption along with the tool itself. So the software is added to it, so that you can really apply these two controls very effectively. So effectively, if the even if the USB drive is given out to somebody, nobody will be able to read the drive until they come to you for kind of decrypting the file sets that you may have. So those measures, especially these two components, can really help secure these pakka accounting components.
So the Word and the Excel files, if they are password protected, can we say that they are 100% secure and nobody can open them, or there are tools even they can open those
So
files?
there are tools which can open them. So
Mhm.
while it provides you a mechanism to protect, it's still not a strong protection, and
Mhm.
hence you need to make sure that you encrypt that data, so that even if something happens to your laptop, a loss of your laptop or loss of your machine, for example, nobody else has the capacity to read it at that particular point of time.
Right, right. So Sheetalji, one thing is that to protect that data so that nobody can read it. But these income tax officer actually they can always ask you the password and you have to give it. So it's not only to protect, but it's also to hide. Okay, so nobody can know. So suppose I am on cloud. Let us say I'm using Dropbox. Now there are some footprints, fingerprints of Dropbox of that file. It might always be there on my laptop. So I do not want any footprints, anything, so that these files are secured in the cloud and nobody can even ask me that have you used this cloud. So can anything happen to that direction?
Yes, so the way you can some of the enterprises have worked upon is for such kacha pakka accounting component, you restrict access through a particular set of machines only and not through your entire enterprise. That's
Mhm.
one control that actually can easily be enforced. The second control that you can also enforce is making sure that you apply or you clean up the traces in the environment, which actually can be done through probably simple scripts onto your machines itself, which you can run and clean up the traces as you connect into these cloud environments.
Yeah. Okay. So again, my next question is related to this. Like a lot of time we delete the file. Okay. We all know, most of us know that deleting doesn't actually delete it. It is just basically it gives the access to that area. Then actually there is another option which says shift delete. So when you push shift delete, then it says okay, it is permanently deleted. Okay, and then sometimes you have hard disk and you say, okay, let us format it to make it more secure. So a lot of our enterprise owners, they think that their file is being deleted, whatever it is, private, confidential, but actually it is not deleted. So what they should do, what do's and don'ts they should do, so that if they have to erase or delete something, they make sure that it is actually gone out of the USB or the laptop.
So I completely agree with you in terms of the delete process. In fact, your computer's trash bin only removes file from your desktop. And even if you empty the trash bin, it actually only deletes the virtual pathway or the virtual connect to that file.
Right.
File is still saved in a hard disk, and it's just a little more difficult to access. Now there are effective ways that you can employ. While one way is to really drive shift delete further, but you will still have traces of that file onto your machine. So the only way to get rid of the file is to actually overwrite the file with some other data,
Right.
that so that that file is no longer available onto your disks itself. And there are probably tools in the market. For example, we use a tool called Eraser, or Apple has something called as Secure Empty Trash, which
Hmm.
can actually help with that process, where while you actually use shift delete to delete the virtual path, you can then using these tools overwrite the file with some other data. So in reality, that file is no longer available.
Okay. Got it, Shitalji. So you are saying that we can use few tools like Eraser and those tools, so that actually they make sure that something is overwritten over the past file, and that is permanently gone.
Absolutely.
What about formatting? People say that okay, if you format the disk, the data is gone. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. Depends upon what kind of formatting you have gone with. If it's a low-level formatting, which is basically disk-level formatting, then yes, the data completely is overwritten completely. Yes, that's another method.
Oh,
Whether you use a pointed technology like Eraser to override a particular file, or just go ahead and do the formatting. Yes.
right, right. Okay. So my third topic is financial fraud. So money is becoming digital. The government recently has done a good job, I would say good job, that all the this tax transaction has to be done online. TDS, GST, all those transaction has to be done online. Then people earlier, I remember that 7 8 years back there was a challenge from e-commerce company that they were not able to figure out because people were not digital and how will they will pay online. But nowadays everybody has a credit card, debit card, online payment, Paytm, GPay, UPI payment, and and then actually bank transfers, and bank transfers can be in crores of rupees, and they all sometimes use the username and password. Most of them actually use the OTP also as a second method of authentication. But still, we can see on the news that there are frauds happening into the market. Uh, ATMs, people clone your debit card into the ATMs. People steal your credit card, basically numbers on the net. And so even credit card and debit card, let us say like we can lose money in thousands and lakhs. But in bank transfer, we can lose the money in crores of rupees. So what to do? Like how to have basically good sleep in the night so that we feel that our bank digital money is safe.
So I will go back to this very particular point. I will go back to making sure that we do our basics right. And in most of my conversations, I've been talking about two very critical factors. One is your approach towards your user ID, your password. That's number one. Number two, your approach towards the machine or the environment from where you're accessing or doing these financial transactions. So let me first touch upon the point number one. See the first and foremost piece to make sure that most of these critical transactions are covered is to make sure that you have a very effective method of having the right strong password for your logins. That's first and foremost very important piece to be done. The second one is enabling multi-factor authentication, which is a multi-layered security structure for all these transactions. And most of the banks today provide these multi-factor authentications available. They've provided them available across. I use Citibank, for example, and my hand thumb is the second level of authentication that I use for Citibank. And effectively, that's one piece that you should enable for all the bank transactions or all the financial transactions that you do. The second one, which is also important, is the do you need to look at whether you have the right security controls in place for the machines you use for these financial transactions. The first and foremost important piece is to keep financial data separate, especially for business users or for enterprise of your sizes. It's very important to you have to have a dedicated workstation to perform all company banking activities, and these machines may not be all the time on open internet. So that's one piece to keep in mind. The second one is the machines that you are using for financial transactions. Do they have the right controls in place? Case for example, anti-spam software, which actually prevents spam and junk email from entering your mailboxes. It actually also helps you guard against phishing emails, for example, or having firewall um, software enabled on your machine. Case for example, Microsoft provides the base firewall enabled through the operating system directly off the back. Have you enabled these firewalls so that it helps preventing unauthorized access to your computer through various viruses or malwares? The next one is having an anti-spyware software, which is actually looking at monitoring and controlling your computer use and any pop-ups or redirects to the various malicious websites. And the good part is that if you go and look at the work from home initiatives, a whole lot of organizations have opened up these kind of controls today to the entire world in simple terms. If having effective security controls will make sure that when you are doing a financial transaction, you're doing these financial transactions through systems which are clean and clear in the way you are driving the requisite communication. The last bit which I'll talk about is you also should know who is asking, and kind of looking at what kind of SMS is being sent out, what emails are being sent out, what text messages are being sent out. If there is an email involved, in email process involved, who is sending those emails, and so on and so forth. I can give you empty number of cases where organizations have paid a vendor on a fake email which has come in. So being cautious about and making sure that you review on who is asking the information or who is asking for that financial transaction, and it's not a fake entry, is also very, very critical. So in simple terms, three areas to work upon. One is making sure that you have strong password enabled with multi-factor authentication. Second is having right controls on your machines, which does the financial transactions, and if possible, have dedicated environments to perform these banking activities. And these environments may not be necessarily be on open internet at any given point of time, only for specific periods is actually available. And last is ensuring that you assess who is asking in little more detail with a little eyes on who is sending those requests out to you.
Yeah. So in India, this SMS and OTP is really becoming very common and very successful, especially in the financial transaction. And we have seen that the banks are saying that we will never call you for OTP, don't tell anybody OTP. And most of the frauds we read in the newspaper are related to OTP, that you will get a call and they will somehow ask your OTP and they will take your OTP, and then they will be able to take out money from your bank. So my question is, OTP is working well, but is it 100% safe, or is it OTP is also 98, 97% safe?
So the issue that we have is actually, it goes back to the point I talked about earlier, is with the awareness of what we share information out on open internet.
Hmm.
Today, because of all these social media platforms, and my team does this social hacking almost every week, and we are able to get data through the social hacking process, in which is the most simplest process today. And the point which I'm making is that through these social media platforms, we tend to give a lot of information about ourselves, our organization, in a massive way. And because the way the world is moving, the way digital controls are coming in place, a lot of data gets picked up and gets utilized by these hackers in simple terms. I think the problem with while OTP is a strong mechanism and can reduce your attack surface in a big way, the problem is having massive data out on open internet through these social media platforms about you, yourself, and then they utilizing this data to really go and change your mobile devices, the controls of mobile devices, to actually pick up the piece of information and hack in for these mobile transactions. So to your point, yes, OTP covers almost 90%, 95% of scenarios, but there are those 10% scenarios where you can really get impacted in a big way if you continue having whole lot of information on through the social platforms being present to the entire world.
Right. So you are saying, and I have seen that like some hackers, they can take control of your mobile and they know that what is being shown on your screen, what is you are typing. And then actually with that, they can basically not only know that what is the username and password you are typing, but also when the OTP comes, they can know that what is OTP coming, what is the OTP number. So is that right?
Absolutely, that's very much right. In fact, they use all the information. If there's a targeted activity going on your company, they will effectively use all the possible information on the open internet about you to really drive these patterns or drive these attacks into your environment. And we have seen this happening multiple times. In fact, just since we touched upon financial fraud, we had seen companies going down the drain just because of they having a lot of information about themselves on open internet, and secondly, using that piece of information, a hacker sending an email for a financial transaction to be delivered, and that organization taking action on the financial transaction without keeping in mind that probably this is a fraud email going into the enterprise. So effectively, there are various scenarios, multitude of scenarios that you need to make sure that you do not really start off with having a lot of information about yourself exposed on open internet itself.
Right. So Sheetalji, how much we are exposed? Uh, like a question that how many laptops are being hacked normally? What percentage of laptop being hacked in the whole world?
See,
Is it like? Mhm.
let me just give you some financial transactions that you'll probably understand where the world is moving towards. See, as per our data, approximately just last year, almost 4.1 billion records were exposed and were in the deep dark web for sale, and that's a massive number just for a period of 1 year. And effectively, um, almost 90% of breaches happen because of carelessness and not because you didn't had a cutting edge technology or a cutting edge tool within your enterprise.
Mhm.
And that also goes back, for example, if you have a enterprise which has, say, 15 or 30 machines or 50 machines, and effectively if you have not patched those machines, for example, it is a very good recipe for the adversary to gain control of your machines, and utilize those machines for further breach of other enterprises, as well as track your transactions in terms of what you are doing and utilize the same as well. So effectively, it's actually those basic things which make a larger difference It's all about how aware are you in terms of when you're clicking a mail which is non-authentic. Are you clicking it? A link in a mail, for example, if you don't know what that link is, should you click those links? Making sure that your basics are in place. For example, your environment is completely patched. You have the right set of AV, antivirus, malware, anti-spam, these solutions in place within your enterprise. These are the various components which will actually really make the difference in terms of how secure you are.
Yeah. So my last question, I have already actually overshooted the time, but this is an important question. Then I will give it to audience. People have started working from home, and especially the non-IT and like in Jaipur, there are a lot of dwellers, handicrafts, those companies. Now they are working from home and they want to connect to their office and the employees. So what are the ways you can basically access your office, to access your applications in the office and to access the data of the office so that it is secure? Just the simple ways which we all can use.
So the first and most simplest way to access your office is through something called as VPN, Virtual Private Network,
Right.
that you utilize. There are a whole lot of providers who actually can give you a on-prem kind of a virtual private network setup that you can drive. That's one method. The second method is to utilize cloud-based solutions to connect to your office. So there are providers who actually will give you a cloud-based VPN solution, which in turn
Right.
can simply connect to your enterprise or your network. That's the second way of connecting. The third way is to utilize something called as virtual desktop. And for this, you need to be on the cloud, where if your data is in the cloud, you can actually connect through the virtual desktop environment into the systems and environments that you are seeking access to. Um, Both the solutions are good solutions, whether it's VPN or virtual desktop, both the solutions are good solutions. And in my view, if you are thinking of moving to cloud, because that's the only way you will be probably be in good hands as I see the future, um, either utilizing the virtual desktop option or a cloud-based VPN, both can be utilized in a much more effective way.
Hmm. Okay. I think this is also a very big topic. I understand, but I think the brief about this is okay. So it's already more than 45 minutes. I will give it to now audience to ask the questions. What I will do is I already have a lot of questions on this chat, but what I will do is that I will like that if people can raise their hands, and I will basically ask people basically. So raise Bakshiji actually, yeah, Bakshiji, I will come to you. So there are two ways of raising your hand. One is like on video, and another is actually if you see the managed participant, and you can raise your hand electronically also, but that's okay. So people can raise their hand, and then I will come one by one, and if the time permits, I will like that everybody can ask just one question. So over to you, Bakshi, and Arun, can you give basically this unmute? Can you unmute to Bakshi? Bakshi, to you.
So, Shitalji, many of us, even before this lockdown happens, have to have home offices. And naturally, we are doing number of things. We might have one or two assistants with us. I live 8 months in US and come here 4 months. So there's a change in environment. So there are two questions. One is there a big difference between Apple-based iOS in terms of security versus much more open Android? The second related question is there a big difference between banks like Kotak Mahindra in India versus top banks like Bank of America in USA?
So let me touch upon the first question, and then I'll cover the second question. Bakshi ji. First of all, between Android and iOS, iOS is far more secure in terms of its controls than the Android option, Bakshi ji. And effectively, the challenge that you also have is apart from having the requisite level of security controls on iOS being more than Android, the way applications get onboarded on Android is also big difference between how Apple Marketplace runs versus how Android Marketplace runs, and that's the second difference that we see. What we have seen is that Android options, the marketplace is far more open, far more wide, and hence the security controls that goes on those applications are far lesser than the iOS version itself. So effectively, between Android and iOS, if I have to choose, I will always go with iOS and Apple option. That's number one. Number two, on between the workings of the US banks versus Indian banks. See, we don't see much of difference between the US banks versus Indian banks. In fact, my view is that since you are referring to specifically to US, my view is that controls in US are not that they are not a controlled environment than what Indian controls that RBI has put in place. I'll give you simple examples. Since I travel to US every now and then, my US credit card, I can use it even today without a PIN in the US. They have now started enforcing the PIN option just probably last 6 months. In the last 6 months, we in India employed the PIN option probably 4 years back. So that's one view that I have. The second view in terms of controls, the requisite controls that the likes of Kotak or the likes of HDFC, ICICI have, they're almost similar to what a Citibank also has, or any other bank, Lloyd's Bank, for example, in the UK has. So not really much of difference. Of course, there's one piece that they do better than the banks here do, is the amount of investment that we do in driving these security controls. Most of the banks in the US run with approximately 18 to 22% of their CIO budget on security, versus India is approximately 10% of a CIO budget goes to security. So that's a subtle difference. They would have not have employed kind of major tool sets, which probably the US banks would have gone ahead with.
So just to finish this, you are absolutely right. That is why most people in US that can afford it want to go to Apple.
Absolutely, completely aligned.
And the second thing is, at least so far, the willingness of banks like Bank of America to immediately, you complain to them, this was not my transaction, they will immediately give your money back and then they will fight the battle for you, which I don't think happens in India.
Well, I probably agree to disagree with you, because it depends on bank to bank. In my scenario, I had similar situations, and I had absolutely no issue in the bank reverting it out, both for the Indian bank as well as the US bank. So it may be a scenario where it is case to case basis across banks. It is though very important to note that there are some tier 1 banks which probably have good strong security controls in India. There are a lot of tier 2 banks which have to have a major shift in terms of how they look at their security posture, and that's very important to note.
Okay, so I will take a next question. Kailash, I think Kailash Gupta raised the hand, but
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So meanwhile, other people can also raise the hand, please. I cannot see. Yeah, I can see some more. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Mr. Sheetal, can I?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's very good insights that you've given. I have a follow-up question on to the recent Mr. Bakshi mentioned about Apple being much secured and to be used at client level. But you know, Apple devices at the client end are very costly. And in between, you mentioned that nowadays you can very well protect your things using virtual desktops, and cloud is much more secured than your on-prem things. So don't you think now the paradigm change will happen wherein everything will go on cloud, including your virtual desktops, wherein any client can be used on the front end? It could be your mobile, it could be your tablet, or it could be your thin client, or for that matter, thin client being used as a virtual desktop, because what you need is just a browser.
Absolutely, Kalaji. And you are spot on there. The world that we will move in tomorrow will be a world where most of our data will be in the cloud. We will not even know where the data is and which location this data is. Of course, localization that government of India is driving may have certain controls with reference to the localization aspect of it. But yes, tomorrow's enterprise will be on all on the cloud with access to employee being given through any of the bring your home devices or bring your own device kind of options, and that's the way that things are moving forward as well.
So since Puneet had mentioned in between that, most enterprises or most businesses in Jaipur are non-tech, non-IT, and mostly they are dependent on their desktops, laptops, or whatever they purchase from market and use it from home.
Right.
Okay. So don't you think there is a bit of kind of awareness which is required that any laptop which you use at home is not perfectly secured until unless you protect it from the like maybe VPN on cloud or VPN on premises, or maybe secured cloud environment, because normally people feel that cloud is unsafe, wherein I think with multi-factor authentication and data centers which have much more better security, they are much more secure than on-prem hardware wherein anybody can hack the data.
No, completely aligned again with what you said. See, the most important point to note is that as the enterprises change and the way business is being transacted today, it's not even the small enterprise, even larger enterprises. For example, even if I take a view of my enterprise itself, we are almost 100% on cloud. Our SAP environment is on cloud, and we allow every employee to options where he can use his own machine or just a browser-based solution to connect to the network. In fact, I'm sure most of you must be using Chrome. Chrome is coming up, Google is coming up with controls very similar to what you'll apply on your laptop. It will apply controls on Google browser itself. So that browser becomes your front-end interface to connect to anything and everything in the world with the requisite
True,
security controls.
true. Thank you so much. Since I
Okay,
come from
so
IT,
there are more people who have raised the hand. Actually, those people who are not able to raise the hand, they can click on manage participants. And when you go there, actually, you can see that when you basically put the mouse on your name, you can see that you can actually raise the hand. So coming to Sanjay Fofalia ji, to you.
Yes, Satish ji. I have a small question. Do you think, as you mentioned that you are into hacking as well, so do you think hacking as a career is a good idea for young entrepreneurs, and why?
Oh yes, Sanjay ji, the cyber security marketplace today, and with a whole lot of startup ecosystem here in India, plus a whole lot of multinationals moving their design, their research work here in India. We today have a massive gap in terms of people with the required capabilities in the cyber domain versus what the industry needs are. There are a set of universities like these couple of universities which have started off in Gujarat, who are actually really driving that approach. But still, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Hence, this is an extremely hot field as I see it in terms of building a career in the cyber domain.
Right. Thank you, Satish ji. And will you be able to share your email or number so that if there is any query, we can be able to?
Absolutely, I can definitely share that across. Not a problem.
Okay, you can do it with Arun, and we'll have it from her.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So I do not know, I do not see any other raise hand, but there are a lot of questions on the chat. So Sanjay Goyal ji, do you want to ask any question?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I just had a question that for the credit card, this OTP system is no more there. So for the international transactions, so how do we secure that?
So the best way, and this is a little bit of concern that at least I also kind of share with you. There are probably a couple of options that you can look at. Most of the times, given that the percentage transaction charges that the Indian banks take have reduced down, most of the time we have moved away from using a international card versus using the local card itself, where OTPs actually can be utilized outside India as well. That's the most best way. You will end up paying little more additional transactions on your India card, but that transaction will be far more secure rather than going through the international debit cards which do not have a OTP.
No, you are not correct here. For the even the Indian credit cards, if I do an international transaction, there is no OTP requirement. The transaction goes straight through. So if somebody hacks my credit card, then there is a problem.
Yes. So and that's what I communicated earlier as well. That if you're going to the US, US doesn't go after OTP. Now they have started off. At least some shops at least I visited, and I used my India credit card. They charged me. They got the OTP as well. But certain say for example, you go to Starbucks, it will never ask you for OTP, and that's a challenge. There's nothing you can do about it.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kshitiz Jain, Kshitiz, you have a question. Can you unmute, Kshitiz? Yeah.
Yeah, hi Sheetal. Thank you, Puneet. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity, and I really appreciate.
And I'm not able to hear you, Kshitij.
Is it better now?
This is a little better, yes.
Okay. My question is regarding with the remote working, Sheetal ji. Like if you have like teams working remotely, are there any tools that we can put in those machines with our remote teams to analyze what exactly the amount of work it has been done, or like how much is the work done? Probably if someone is doing a desk job, probably an admin job or an accounting job, or probably any other job.
You can so Kshitij, you can definitely measure the amount of time that an employee is spending in terms of when he logged in, when he logged off. So there are tool sets available which can help you with it. But I will want to caution you that employee may also kind of log in and then stay logged in without doing anything. So those scenarios you cannot cover, but definitely there are tool sets which actually can help you based on your login, log off information in terms of the number of hours that you were on the machine. There are also certain tools which can capture the activity that's happening on the machine. So there's a tool called Next9 which we utilize, which actually can capture every activity which is actually going on your machine. That's again another method by which you can also kind of capture information for a particular employee.
Sheetal ji, can you put the name of the tools or probably suggest some free tools? Being an SME, probably we might not have access to the tools that Wipro is using. Probably.
Sure. I will share those tool sets. I will share those tool sets after this call.
Yeah, Kshitij ji, I'll connect you offline. I have some input for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Sunil Jain. He has raised the hand. So, Sunil ji. Sunil ji, can you unmute yourself? Arun, can you help? Yeah. Now you are unmute. You can talk.
Okay. My question is that, as mentioned, Puneet ji, that we are like in Jaipur, we have an jewelers and handicraft people who are not much aware of the technology. So when you mentioned that this VPN network, which is like a working home and the cloud network, so what is the cost difference between both of them and how secured both of the technology? And if it is a cloud, exactly that what the earlier they have asked you, what kind of a cloud system we can use? Like there is any company where we can go and use that cloud system? How we do it? As a layman, I'm asking you this.
Got it, Sunilji. So, Sunilji, with reference to the two environments, VPN-based hardware box into your enterprise, you logging into the VPN box, which is internet connected. There are a whole lot of companies which actually do this. To name a few, I'm not sure whether Jaipur has a vendor called Fortinet or Cisco or Palo Alto. So these are all the vendors who actually provide a simple standard VPN solution where you can connect into your enterprise. So that's one option. This is a hardware-based option that you will go with. In terms of cloud, there are likes of Microsoft, the likes of Google, who will actually can provide you with a cloud-based solution where you can actually set up your virtual desktops in the cloud itself, either with Microsoft or with GCP or Google Cloud Provider, and effectively access those desktops as well as your servers and environment through those tools, through the virtual interfaces itself. So
And what?
those options both are available and should be available for you in Jaipur as well.
No, but what is the cost difference like? How
Okay. Now, in terms of cost, it will depend upon the amount of application, software, hardware that has to go onto the cloud. So, of course, cloud will be much more costlier than setting up just a VPN hardware box into your environment. So, because it's not an apples to apples comparison. In the first scenario, you're just deploying a hardware box to have a VPN connectivity into your network. You're not ripping apart the machines, the desktops, the servers, the application which you have already invested into your enterprise. In a cloud-based scenario, you are actually completely phasing out all that investment and just moving to cloud in a virtual environment. So cloud will be costlier than a standard VPN solution.
Okay, thank you.
So we just two or three more questions. So one I can see from Dheeraj, but I do not see Dheeraj. Are you there? Dheeraj is not there. Bakshiji also has raised the hand again. Bakshiji.
So first of all, let me thank and congratulate both you, Puneet, and Sunitji. This is a very important topic. And one person had asked how important is this industry. It is extremely important, not just in India, but in US. The question I have for you is, you mentioned several times having a strong password. The biggest trouble most people have is, how do you save them? There's so many different passwords. You can't remember them all. How do you save them?
So that's an excellent question, Bakshiji. See, there are two ways that you can look at utilizing the process of passwords. One is trying to probably move away. A lot of enterprises have moved away from password to something called as password phrases. So that's a little more simpler than kind of keeping your passwords in mind all the time. That's one option. Second option is to probably use something called as a password manager, and there are a whole lot of freeware components as well as non-freeware components which you can utilize to secure your password or have a password vault to drive kind of access into various passwords that you have for yourself. The third bit is to really keep your password little simpler and use and add on biometric access controls onto your application set, which in turn can help you move away from password some point of time in the future. So those are the three options that you can utilize much more effectively to handle your passwords various password that you may have.
The face recognition is coming now, right? Face recognition.
Yeah, face recognition, your hand recognition, all that actually is coming in. There are softwares which actually are very much available on your iPhone as well as on Android devices. So that's all very much available. Password managers are very much available on most of these devices. So you can make use of these tools to actually secure your passwords within various platforms.
Okay.
Now, if you ask me what I do, I actually go I actually use a very traditional way of keeping passwords. I use a book to make sure that I have, while I keep that in mind, but I also have some place to utilize it.
What about notes? Can you put it in notes and?
No, that's not a good idea.
Okay.
Notes or any other solution which is electronic, and when your machines are on open internet, that's not a good idea at all.
So what you are saying, you use what books?
Paper book.
I notebook actually.
Notebook, okay, but you have to keep notebook all the time.
Yeah, I just secure that notebook. So one is in my mind and second is in my notebook. That's all it is.
Okay. So I do not see any other person, and we have already crossed 20 minutes, in fact. So thank you, Sheetalji. Any other question? Last question. We can take just last question. If not, then we can close it.
So ask Sheetalji to send some 1 page, half page, 2 page, something that we can share with the rest of the people who couldn't attend.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Not a problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Arun Parekh is also like noting down. He's also recording. So he can also
So I'll be sending the summary of the session to everyone. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you, Sheetal Bhaiya, for taking time out of your busy schedule and gracing to talk to us. Really great insights into your immense knowledge, and thank you once again. Thank you, Puneet, for moderating this for us. I think this was quite an insightful session. So I hope, I'm sure the notes would be enjoyed by a lot of, and Sheetal Bhaiya, I think a lot of members would be trying to connect with you to talk to you and understand from you certain things.
Absolutely, pleasure is mine, and thank you all for taking the time out on Sunday.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Every day is Sunday today. I'm saying we are all on Sundays right now.
Thank you, Sharvik, for
Thank you, Sharvik ji, as well, for getting Sheetal ji on board for us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.